Let's talk some sense into this world. We've all heard the news. Rising food costs, more frequent extreme weather occurrences, degraded agricultural soils, increased migration, political rhetoric, racism, white supremacy, a military state. These issues are all interrelated. And in this series, I invite you to come along as we examine their correlations and explore how we can turn the tides. Hi, my name is Rosalinda. As a survivor and a community organizer, I've long been interested in understanding the root causes of violence and trauma, because I want to understand what we can do to make the world a more peaceful and sustainable one. So in this series, we're going to talk about a little bit of history. We're going to talk about how these histories led to where we are today. And we're going to examine the stressors of modern day living. Things that contribute to disease, accelerated aging, lower economic opportunities and justice, and experiences that perpetuate and compound the effects of trauma. And we're going to examine the interconnection between wellness, resilience, and biology. So let's get into it. I want to first start off by talking about how economic concerns dominate our cultural, our social, and our personal priorities. I mean, it makes sense. The system's been set up this way. But I want to suggest that placing economic drivers as the top priority, it really threatens our survival by commodifying everything in life. We all know that food insecurity is on the rise. Since 2020, U.S. food prices have increased 24%. And extreme weather events have caused disruptions to farming practices, making it more difficult to grow crops. Human-driven climate change is impacting weather extremes. Experts say that climate change has the potential to cause significant economic harm. So again, if economics are our driving force, then we need to look at climate change as a threat to that force. Transportation accounts for over a quarter of global carbon dioxide emissions, which has the effect of raising global temperatures that contribute to extreme weather events. Then let's take fracking, which has been shown that it can induce earthquakes, and it releases methane. Methane has 86 times the warming impact of carbon dioxide in our environment. Researchers who studied the 2025 heat waves found that heat waves were 10 times more likely than they would have been even just a decade ago due to human-induced climate change. Climate change is impacting weather extremes and threatens our ability to respond and adapt to those with enough warning time or resources. And as climate changes, we are using our heat or our air conditioning more, which has been shown that air conditioning is responsible for 4% of fossil fuels emitted into the environment. Now let's talk about degraded soils. The soils have been degraded largely as a result of intensive farming practices, which include chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, the constant use of heavy machinery, and overgrazing. I think as we talk about our current day agricultural system, it's also important to talk about colonial farming practices and how farming was another way of controlling the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. So it's important that we talk about the legacy that white supremacy has had as it has othered everyone else in the globe. We need to address the use of toxins, fertilizers, weed suppressants, our tilling practices, monocropping, and the use of GMO seeds. These applications expose both humans, insects, animals, water, and the environment with herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, which contaminates water. We've got forever plastics and pollution, and now we've got the police state using chemical warfare on American soil. All of these things are interrelated because soil degradation, it leads to a lack of moisture absorption. It leads to droughts and floods and land erosion. The degradation of soil means that we have less agricultural farmlands globally. And farmers are among the highest at risk of suicide, which is often associated with crop failure and economic stress. Again, we need to think about how all of these things are interrelated. Let's talk about migration for a minute. The Migration Policy Institute found that crop loss from droughts, flooding, strong winds, and wildfires are key drivers for family migration, and that it's likely to worsen in coming decades. People are fleeing their homes, not because America seems to be such a great place at the moment, but because of crop failure, because of extreme weather, because of natural, man-made disasters that drive people out of their ancestral homes and come to a place that is actively racist. Let's also talk about how 70% of the world's population is expected to experience trauma in their lifetime. 70% of the world's population is expected to experience trauma in their lifetime. So, to me, this indicates that we should all be better equipped to deal with our own trauma, but also the trauma of the majority of people in the globe, right? Not to say that we are there to, help everybody, all the time, to be 100% available 24/7. No, but we need to be able to process our collective traumas and our historic traumas and our intergenerational traumas and our personal traumas. Because all of these forms of trauma, they impact our body, our mind, our emotions, our nervous system, our ability to regulate, to feel good, to feel. I mean, there are people who self-harm because they need to feel something that doesn't feel so out of control. And many people feel emotionally or physically or, just off because things are not right in the world. They're not, and they haven't been for a long time, for a very long time. This didn't just happen overnight. There's a global context to what's happening. So we're going to dive into some of these things during our time together, and I appreciate you being here with me. Humans try to break things down into the simplest ways to understand things, but it's time for us to evolve and to begin thinking in more complex systems. So that's what we're doing here today. We're just vibing, we're just chatting, we're just getting some thoughts out, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. So drop your thoughts, your comments in the comments below. I will read every one of them. Want to hear more? Join us on Saturday, January 31st, 2026, for the We Can Change the World, a discussion on strategies for building resilience. In this live call, I'll share my thoughts on the underlying stressors of modern life, and more importantly, the actions that we can take to empower ourselves, our communities, and to build a more resilient environment. Join us 11 a.m. on Saturday, January 31st. It's a free event. The registration link is in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.